Alright, checking back in here. Been a minute. I think the last name I was focused on was BLNK, which that was in here I was talking about. And you can go back and look at the old video. I believe it was the 320 zone in the 3 and 320 zone. And it started out really nice. It had this area where it held. We had the increase in volume here. Then we held this 3 zone, blew through the 320, had a great move here, but then we just had this nasty sell-off. So kind of like a neutral reaction to it after. I mean, it was good here, but if you don't respect your stop loss, I remember saying that actually. Once it gets below this, we're all done with it, because this name historically for me, it's just always seems to be selling off. It always seems to have selling pressure. So that was that. I have a couple of some big moves that I see developing, and that's what I want to go over here. So first off is AFRM. I think I brought this up last video, but this here, I mean, this is literally the most the most, what do they call it, cup and handle. This is about as cup and handly as you can get, and this is a monthly 10-year. I mean, this, and then we're gonna go up, shoot through here. Yeah, that's gonna be crazy. So this is the number one. Let me get this off. This is the number one watch for me, and I have a few levels that I'm working off of. To me, it's really two things. You could either risk this 30. You could either risk, well, at this point, kind of going through this in my head, because it had this. So prior to this breaking below the moving averages, I was thinking to myself, you probably play this 30-50 zone. But now, when I zoom out a little bit and I start to, obviously, like, there's that big picture chart. So I feel like the real move is give yourself a little more of a little more space on the entry here, and maybe work in somewhere in this 27, 28, 29 zone, and just kind of plan on it coming down near these lows with the hopes that it comes down to these lows, kind of finds its bottom, and then shoots back above these moving averages, and then has the big rip. That's kind of what I'm visualizing. This was playing off some Apple news, I think, that they were related with. But still, this monthly 10-year is absurd. I mean, this looks so good. So, big watch. Obviously, big picture. That would be a swing trade. That would be, that's a longer term hold, but beautiful opportunity. We also have this. This was kind of something I was looking at. For, again, I always go to the monthly 10-year. I start wide. This was something I was looking at for a potential next leg up, kind of through this 12 zone. Just kind of a standard kind of run, and then consolidate below these recent highs and then blow through it. The weekly doesn't look as pretty. as the monthly, and the daily kind of the same. I had been looking at this, but I was hoping it would sell off a little bit, maybe come back down into this mid 8 zone. But big picture, another one that I like, I'm really focusing on these big monster, potential trades. I'm sick of the little in and out stuff. Sometimes it exhausts you. So these big picture ones, I'm starting to dial in. So I like this. Again, your risk pretty simple on a trade like this, where you're really just risking this, in my opinion, this kind of recent low right in here. I mean, pretty clear levels on this one. Next up we have this, which doesn't visually look too nice yet, but with the election and the whole storyline, I feel like this DJT is going to have a lot of potential. We have back here on 10/1/21, we had the huge volume and we had the huge move. So this thing has potential. This is again monthly 10-year. So this has potential. I'm going to kind of keep it in the bullpen and see if something sets up, because this weekly 2-year looks really ugly. So this is a situation where the storyline is there, but the visual isn't aligned with it yet. So we're kind of sitting on the sidelines until, basically it falls in our lap. You don't want to force it. So DJT, I mean, even if you were starting to scale in now, the risk here is so low. I mean, it's 22, 23. I mean, you really could start in. This is similar to what was the first one, AFRM, where I said kind of this daily chart, this low here. Same thing with DJT. If you wanted to start in, you could really just play it off this low, and then if it breaks below, you cut it and you let it kind of develop and give it some time. You don't want to get caught holding the thing for 6 months. You want to stay on top of it. So DJT, what else we have? We have this oil play. This was something I was looking at a long time ago. But this here, if you look at uranium back in here, again, monthly 10-year, had this crazy flag kind of tight up and then just rocket. Well, this XLE and a lot of these oil names kind of have this similar look. So that's something I was keeping an eye on, potentially for the hold in this, kind of pop, pull back, kind of the classic look, hold this previous high. But I like this because if you zoom out onto the monthly 20-year, we're right at this peak. We're right at this peak here from 2014, which is 100. So there's a lot of good things kind of colliding at that one moment. So kind of an interesting low-key swing if you're into that. Couple others. I don't think this falls into the DJT basket, and I would say this one looks a little bit more visually appealing, but the storyline is less appealing. So it's almost a flip of DJT, but this Rumble RUM monthly 10-year looks really nice, and I really like these fresh IPO kind of names, because I feel like they can kind of get going off the bottom, similar to that ARQT. Like, well, I guess not quite, but what is it, Reddit? Yeah, I guess not really, but this here, I mean, at this point, your risk levels, dead bottom, I would have to say, is the bottom of this candle. And this is the monthly 3-year at 455. I mean, so at this point, 455, basically, right? So you'd probably say $1.50 risk at this point for potentially, and this is what I mean when I say monster gains, because if you're patient enough, and let's say again you're risking off 4, you have $1.50 risk. I mean, this, I could easily see this going to $10 conservatively, and potentially, you know, trying to make a run beyond this. But let's say 10 to 12 zone, that's a monster gain for $1.50 risk. So that's kind of what I'm seeing on this one. Let's take a look at the weekly. The weekly, again, not that pretty, but it's just kind of doing its thing. Daily chart. This is one where you would see, let's check here. You would see the moving averages kind of curling. Okay, it's not quite there yet, but this again could add to the you know, the fire for the potential trade if this kind of pops and gets tight in here. So that's another one. This isn't there yet, but I'm keeping my eye on it. This UPWK Upwork 10-year monthly, again, it just looks so low, and I'm not a huge fan of chasing down these, you know, dead names on the bottom. But sometimes when the volume comes in, you know, you can ride a momentum wave. I'm not saying I'm getting married to these things, but for a couple days or weeks, maybe months sometimes, you can have a nice ride here. So this here is kind of interesting to me. I mean, you have this huge volume, and again, I'm kind of just going through this as I'm making the video. This is just on the fly, so it's just me doing what I would do. This here, you got to think this 1030 zone is definitely going to be in the neighborhood. I would say it's usually slightly below that. So right in there, you know, of course, right where the volume started. So playing off that, if you were to say around the 10 neighborhood, again, you kind of just playing off this recent lows. This might have the same look as I was just saying. I like these moving average bottom curlers. See, this is closer than Rumble was, but same kind of situation here. So this could be coming through here and kind of squeezing. I like the moving average squeezers here. Some volume coming in. So I'm liking what I'm seeing here on Upwork. Not ready to pull the trigger from me, but I mean, technically, yeah, you really could, based off of those levels I just said about this 10 level. But I think it still has some time to go before it's ready to make that you know, bull kind of supernova action. The other sector here, this AI, this basket here, we have the AI ticker, which this one is recently looked stronger than the other two that I'm going to show here. Weekly 2-year looks kind of interesting. This is a tough one to figure out, though. It's I haven't been able to really get my grip on this name. Even the monthly 10-year, it's just kind of all over the place. But you got to imagine that this is going to go up, just with this sector and just where the world's heading. So it might not set up as thoroughly as we want. It might kind of rush through the process. But this SOUN, whole different look here, which is a bit confusing. But I kind of feel like this one has a better monthly 10-year setup. It's kind of nice and clean, and we can work off these lines here. This 310, this is like, to me, that would be, you get 303, 303. I mean, I wouldn't say you're risking down here. I guess you could say basically 3 is dead bottom on this thing. So again, even like I just highlighted on, I think it was Rumble, about hunting these monster gains. If you were to risk, let's say 280, let's say you play a little below 3, because you gotta kind of play the game. Let's say you risk 280. You're basically risking $1. And this thing has basically an infinite ceiling, but let's just say conservatively it goes to 10, 8 or 10, which we know it could easily go to 16 or 20. But I mean, right there, you're making monster gains. Like, that's what we're hunting here. So I'm trying to really dial in on that. The last one was this NNOX. This one again, I think this is a super thin float, but monthly 10-year kind of looks juicy. Had our big volume days, and these are all kind of like related. Again though, you gotta wonder, with these big volume days, and this is a monthly, these levels are really solid to work off. So here you got this 550, this 550 zone. I mean, another one where potential monster gains. The only downfall is this has very low, just average daily volume. So that's why I personally am leaning more towards SOUN if I'm going to kind of go after one of these. But NNOX is lower float, and I believe it's just more of a high flyer. This thing can go crazy. Where SOUN, I think, is a little thicker. Not as much range, but still. Pros and cons. So that is, I think, it for our monsters that we're hunting. But we're just gonna keep it dialed in.